Hi everyone. So we're going to continue our learning of the Mishnah of Berachot. Before I do that, as we do every week, I just want to read the list of yard sites for this week since we don't have the opportunity to do that at morning Shacharit together. So I'll do the whole weeks of yard sites now. Abraham Lewis Moses, Abraham ben Shraga, Eugene Drexler, Yaakov ben Gavriel, Coleman Spitz, Baruch ben Hirsch, Marilyn Davis, Miriam, Reuben Solomons, Reuben ben Abraham, Joyce Millett, Dr. Maurice Solomon Richmond, Moshe Shlomo ben Yitzchak Yehoshua, Erica Bush, Erica Bat Yehuda, Nathan Olshitsky, Natan, Albert Pincus, Abraham Chaim ben David, Siorna Goldner, Siorna Bat Moshe, Morris Gilovitz, Moshe ben Abraham, Beryl Gingus, Dov ben Mordechai, David Glass, David ben Yoel Yaakov, Rabbi Leib Falk, Harav Yehuda ben Abraham, and Richard Simons. So those are our yard sites for this week, and our learning now of Mishnah Berachot. It will be in their memory. Okay, so we just finished chapter 5 last week. We were learning about the laws having to do with Shema, then we learned about the laws having to do with the Amidah, and now we're in chapter 6, which is about, we're starting to talk about Berachot, the blessings on food. So let's learn a little bit about that. Okay, so Aleph, number 1. Ketzad mevarchim al haperot. In what manner do we recite a blessing on produce, on fruits? Al perot hailan omer, on fruits of the tree we say, borei pri ha'etz, who creates the fruit of the tree. Chutz min hayayin, shel hayayin omer, borei pri hagafen. Except for wine, because on wine we have the special bracha of borei pri hagafen. So even though it's in that character that grapes, which make wine, come from, would be also a fruit of the vine or the tree, we have a special blessing just for wine because of its special status in Jewish ritual and in Jewish life. Okay? Ve'al perot ha'aretz omer borei pri ha'adama. And on fruits of the earth we say, who creates the fruit of the ground. Chutz min hapat, she'al hapat hu omer hamotzi lechem min ha'aretz. Except for bread, even though bread is derived from ingredients that come from the ground, from wheat, we have a special bracha, just similar to wine. We have a special bracha specifically just for bread. And what's interesting about this is, I think, also, is that this is the only one which has the that definite article, ha motzi lechem min haaretz, and that has to do with the Tosafot at least explains that has to do with the word prior to that, ha'olam, in the reciting of the bracha. Also ends with a mem. So if we had an end with a mem and beginning with a mem, it would get kind of gumbled up all together. We'd have a problem, jumbled. So we need to, the rabbis instituted it in this specific way so that wouldn't be a problem. So that's why that bracha is also uniquely different in terms of the definite article. Okay. Ve'al hayerakot omer borei pri ha'adama. And on the greens, literally greens, yerakot, having vegetables that you eat the actual thing itself as opposed to it being the fruit of some other vine or vegetable. So like lettuce, for example. Borei pri ha'adama, Rabbi Yehuda omer borei minei deshaim. So we say also for these borei pri ha'adama, Rabbi Yehuda says that it's this other prayer, which we don't use currently, of borei minei deshaim, which is creates species of herbage. So Rabbi Yehuda was in favor of a much more specific kind of formulation of brachot, and we end up doing the more general of saying ha'adama instead of having a separate one for lettuce as opposed to some other vegetable. Okay, bet. Berach al perot hailan borei pri ha'adama. So now we're already talking about what happens when you kind of err and you say not quite the right bracha. So if one recited on fruits of the tree the blessing of who creates the fruit of the ground, yatsa, he fulfilled his obligation. Retroactively, it's fine. He already said the words left his mouth because it is inherently true that any fruit that comes from a tree comes from the ground. The tree is a conduit from ground to the fruit. So because it's inherently true, retroactively, if you already said it, you don't have to repeat and say, you don't have to say a different bracha. You shouldn't say two brachot. Because it's true, because it's accurate, it's fitting, it's the more general as opposed to the specific. So the more general can cover retroactively the more specific. Okay, but so now we're going to say the opposite. Ve'al perot haaretz borei pri ha'etz. If you said on the ve'al perot haaretz borei pri ha'etz lo yatsa. If you said on fruit of the ground, who creates the fruit of the tree, and it wasn't fitting, it wasn't true, it didn't fit the specific circumstances because it was using something too specific for something more general, you would not fulfill your obligation. You would need to say the appropriate bracha. You would need to repeat, say another blessing, the one that's appropriate and fitting. Al kulam imamar shehakol nihye yatsa. If on anything, on all of them, if one said the blessing of shehakol nihye bedvaro, and everything came into being, that God creates everything, he has fulfilled his obligation. Again, that's because of this idea of something, the first thing that one should do is one should familiarize themselves with the blessings, say the appropriate blessing for the appropriate thing. The rabbis have a blessing for all different foods. If one doesn't know, or it's impossible to know, it's too difficult, or if one already said the wrong blessing, if it still fits, we allow it to be that worked. So because saying that God created everything came into being from God, that fits for all food. Retroactively, even though it's not the specific appropriate bracha for something, it would work. So if one just said it and it was wrong, don't go. If one said shehakol and it was wrong, there was actually a more specific bracha that would be fitting, don't go back and say it again, because it did cover the circumstances. Or if there's a situation in which you did everything you can, you looked up the bracha for a certain food and there's just no way of knowing, then shehakol would also be appropriate. Okay? And Mishnah 3, Gimel, the final one that we'll do together today. Al davar she'ein gidulo min haaretz omer shehakol. So on something which did not grow from the ground, we say shehakol. Al hachometz ve'al hanovlot ve'al hagovai omer shehakol. So this is interesting. We'll come back to this actually. So now we're listing things that sound like maybe they don't fit in this category, but we'll explain. So on vinegar and on novlot, which are like these unripe fruit, maybe they fell off the tree really early, they're kind of ruined, there's something wrong with them. And on locust, we would say shehakol. I'll get back to that. Al hechalav, al hagvina, al habeitzim, omer shehakol. These are ones that maybe we already knew, but the Mishnah is choosing to explain them again because maybe they're very common ones or important parts of the diet, or maybe someone would have confused that because it's like dairy products or products of animals, because the animals feed on grass, maybe you would think it also comes from the land, but that's not the case. So for milk and cheese and eggs, they get shehakol as well. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Kol shehu min klala ein mevarchim alav. So Rabbi Yehuda, so what we said earlier about those list of three things, the vinegar and vinegar and unripe fruits and on locust. Rabbi Yehuda is coming to say that actually certain things that come from a curse, a plague, wouldn't get a blessing at all. So that could be his response to the Tanakama, the first voice of the Mishnah that said that gave that list of three things. His response to that actually doesn't get a shehakol, it gets no bracha, because there's something wrong, there's something ruined about it, there's something literally cursed or something just bad about it. So chometz, vinegar, specifically wine vinegar that we might be referring to, is wine that's not good. The unripe fruits are fruits that weren't on the tree long enough. They didn't get to ripen properly. They didn't get to become the fruit the way we like it to be. It's ruined in some kind of other way. And therefore, and the other one, locust, which is literally associated with the plague. So Rabbi Yehuda feels that these things maybe don't get a bracha at all. And others say because of the Tanakama says, because of their like diminished status, that they don't really fit into the category that they're associated with. There's something inherently off about them, and they don't really fit, like wine vinegar doesn't really deserve or fit into the proper category as wine to get such a special, unique bracha. And the same for like ruined fruits that didn't ripen properly, that didn't develop properly, that are destroyed in some other way, aren't fitting of getting the regular blessings that we have on fruits. So that could also be why it is. And the halacha we'll see will not be in accordance with Rabbi Yehuda, that if something is still food, something that we're still getting benefit from, anything that we get benefit from in this world, we end up saying a bracha on. But there will be certain circumstances where maybe something that one would think it would be in this specific category because of some kind of diminished status. It's actually on a lesser plane, and therefore requires a shehakol. So we can learn more about that from studying the halacha. Okay, thank you so much for joining, and we'll return next Wednesday, and we'll continue learning chapter 6 of Mishnah Berachot. Thank you. Bye.